the mainstream, it isn't the case. They say you're spinning on a rock in the middle of space, but now's not the time, nor is it the place. I'm really sick of getting lied to, so get out my face. If you feel the way I feel, then come with me, get up. Flat earthers all across the plane, ripping it up. Truth seekers all up in this bitch, getting it crunk. And if you think we plan on stopping, then you're shit out of luck. That's why ODD is always on the grind, and I'm never ever scared to speak what's on my mind. Cause this day and age, everybody is afraid. It's an illness, realness is hard to find. They lie all the time, and we don't need that. It's one big hoax, and I'm starting to see that. Space was a place that I wanted to be at. I used to believe that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flat Earth Podcast. I'm Curious Jay, alongside me, Dave, from deep inside the rabbit hole. We appreciate you joining us once again for another dose of Flat Earth audio. Dave, how you doing this week?
Doing great. Glad to be here again.
Yes, indeed. So, a lot going on still. The debate rages on regarding the west to east direction of the solar eclipse path of totality.
I want to say that I was witness to a epic conversation between you and Jaren from Jarenism for about 3.5 hours yesterday evening. And I don't know if we're any closer or not to understanding, does it make sense, the direction that it goes?
And what's amazing is the day before that 3.5 conversation, I think we had about a 2.5 to 3 hour conversation. So that's a total of about 6 hours. And yeah, we're still right down the middle.
Here's how I look at it. This part is questionable. We do know that it models perfectly on a flat Earth, where the shadow goes in the right direction. You know, with a close local sun and the sun overtaking the moon, it makes perfect sense and can be modeled. This part of which way, you know, with the Earth's spin and the speed of the moon at the ridiculous distance that it is questionable. But the real point is, no one has been able to demonstrate how a distant light can cast a shadow on a distant object, make a distant object cast a shadow. It just doesn't work. So the model's broken. I'm in the sales business, and what I do when I have a new client is, and unlike many other salespeople, is they just look for reasons that the deal is going to work. The first thing I do is look for the reason it's not going to work. It doesn't fit. They can't afford it. You know, the structure isn't strong enough. The town won't allow it or whatever. Because if you find one reason it doesn't work, game over. The rope is broken. You can't climb the tree.
That's correct. And, you know, I think that until we do get a model, I think we still have to ask ourselves why there isn't a working animation with all of the pieces properly adjusted to the speeds, etc. You know, one thing that I thought was funny, Potter's Clay's last video, he put out another video a couple days ago, and he said something like, us arguing this point is, you know, it's the same as arguing what dress the polka dotted unicorn should wear to the party.
Absolutely. Good point.
All of us are flat earthers, right? We don't believe in the heliocentric model, but yet we're arguing this point, you know, some for and some against whether it works on the heliocentric model. And I think it's a valid analogy, but I think it's also a very important discussion because let's say if it can be modeled, the west to east path can be modeled on the heliocentric model. Okay, cool. We can put it in the works on a globe, works on a flat Earth basket, right?
That's the best case scenario for the globe, is that it's a tie, that it works on both. It works simply without question on the flat Earth model, and it maybe works, but as Jaren always says, you can't live on a ball.
Right. And water doesn't curve, etc. But if we discover, or if we find that science's own rules, you know, math's own rules, physics' own laws dictate that this cannot be modeled on the heliocentric model,
that would be the globe killer. We're looking for that. Yeah. So keep doing what you're doing. I can't wait to see your video when you get it together. So again, the August 21st is the eclipse. Make sure it comes. Make sure it comes. Make sure that
make sure it comes.
Make sure it comes. It's coming. And make sure, you know, they tell us not to look at it, and they're handing everyone these super, you know, filtering glasses. I don't necessarily believe in that. I'm not telling you to look at the eclipse, but I'm going to.
Right. Speaking of the eclipse, we did get a quick message on the speak pipe regarding the eclipse.
Since it appears that you can see the blue of the sky behind the moon during the day, wouldn't the sun's rays shine through the so-called craters of the moon during the eclipse?
Dave, you want to sum that up? What is he saying?
Yeah. So what he's saying is, there's lots of people such as myself that believe or are leaning towards the fact that the sun and the moon are not physical objects and they are some sort of projection, for lack of a better word. If you look at the moon at night, it looks really solid and whatnot. And then if you look at it during the day in a blue sky, it sure looks like you can see through the crater areas.
Transparent.
Yeah, it's transparent. I always equate it to if you're in a pitch black movie theater and they're projecting, the image on the screen, it looks great. Turn the lights on in the theater, and all of a sudden, it's transparent. So his question is, if that is true, wouldn't the sun's rays come through the moon? And he's absolutely right. However, I don't believe that it's the moon that we see that is eclipsing the sun. Without getting into all of the other dark bodies that could be up there that are doing it, that some people say are doing it, I believe that what we're seeing is the apparent sun and the apparent moon, and the real sun source and the real moon source is above the firmament or above where we see. So up there, the moon goes in front of the sun and blocks the sunlight from being projected below. So if you look at two objects in a mirror, one of them's closer to you and one of them's farther, put a mirror in front of you, they switch positions. So what we're seeing is the apparent moon go behind the apparent sun, but the real moon is in front of the real sun, blocking the light. And that would explain it. But you know what? We're not up there. We don't know.
We don't know.
It's a way to explain it. There's a lot to be discovered in that area.
Well, I think what he's pointing out here is that you can't have it both. It can't be transparent and blocking the sun, or we'd see through it.
Agreed.
So
agreed.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
But if it if it is a projection, yes, it can be transparent.
Sure.
And if the object that's projecting it is in front of the sun above where we see, they could easily block it. It might be something that humans on the face of the earth will never know.
That's right. Well, much more to come with the solar eclipse. I think we had one more speak pipe message.
Throw it up.
Another voicemail. Didn't have to do with the eclipse. Let's take a listen really quick.
Hey guys, Kurt in Cincinnati here. Just wanted to bring up a topic of the moon Terminator illusion. Say we are on a flat Earth and moon and sun are in our atmosphere. Regardless, the moon shadow does not line up perpendicular, or whatever the term is, to the sun. It's off by about, I'll just say 15 to 20 degrees or so. Have fun talking about this. It's a brain scratcher unless you also believe that the Earth or the moon creates its own light. Have a good day, guys.
So what he's saying is the Terminator line of light to dark on the moon doesn't line up where the sun is. And at the end, he said, unless you believe the moon does generate its own light. Well, I do believe that the light we see from the moon does come from the moon, and it's not reflected light from the sun. I mean, think about what we're told. It's a dirty, dusty ball up there, and it's reflecting light so bright that on a dark, area on the Earth, when there's a full moon, the moon will cast shadows, and you can read by it. That can't happen. If you look at the inverse square law of light, there's no way the moon would be so bright that when the astronauts supposedly got there, it would have been like the sun.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work.
No, that doesn't work. And that was probably one of the first things in my early months of research that I actually noticed for myself and videoed several times, where I would look up at the day moon. And it was amazing. I think it was off by more than 15 degrees at that point, at certain times of the month, because I would capture this on video all the time, where I'm looking right at the day moon. It's about 40 degrees elevation above the horizon, and it is lit top half only, bottom half is blued out, right? But the sun is about 35 degrees above the horizon, right behind me, 180 degrees away from the moon itself. So it's clear that the sun should be lighting up the bottom half of the moon, but it wasn't.
Yeah, there's also a little bit of perspective that you have to give credit to, because as the sun moves farther away, it does look like it's lower, but really it's still high. When the sun sets, it's still high above the earth. It just looks like it's at your eye level, but it truly, whatever distance above you, perspective brings it down. So I think some of that plays into the illusion of where we're seeing it. Personally, a theory that I have, and I don't have any way to prove it, is that the sun is lighting up the moon, but electrically, like a Tesla coil lights up a fluorescent light. And that energy from the sun is the light that we see on the moon. Something to toy with.
Definitely something to think about, and a great call from Kurt. We appreciate that from Kurt in Cincinnati. So when we come back from this short break, we're going to have somebody that you got us in touch with who is a school teacher and is also a flat earther.
Yep, he's got lots of ideas and questions, and every day he is questioning how can people believe this nonsense. And we're going to talk to him about how he deals with educating kids, knowing that the Earth is not a spinning ball.
Okay, all that and much more coming up in just a second.
Following announcement has been paid for by
The Flat Earth
Podcast.
You want to leave a digital voicemail for us? Head over to theflatearthpodcast.com and click on the blue link that reads, "Got a question? Send us a message."
You can do it from your iPhone or from your computer. First time you do it on your cellular phone, you'll have to download a little app. But after that, you can leave us all kinds of messages. If you want to be anonymous, you can make up a name, make up an email address. We don't care. We just want to hear what you have to say.
We'll do our best to play or answer these questions and comments on future episodes right here on the Flat Earth Podcast. Download the SpeakPipe app and check us out at theflatearthpodcast.com.
The Flat Earth
Podcast.
If you're watching this audio on YouTube right now and you're not familiar with the world of podcasting, there's a far better way to listen to the Flat Earth Podcast each and every week.
Think of it like your TiVo or your DVR is to your television. You subscribe to whatever show that you like. Whenever a new episode comes out, it records it, downloads it, and notifies you that there's a new episode for easy listening anywhere. Another great feature on most podcast players is you could speed up if you want to hear stuff even faster, or more importantly, it has a jump back and jump forward 30 seconds so you could skip
We're on
annoying
iTunes,
announcements like this.
Stitcher, SoundCloud, and so many more. If we're not on your favorite podcast app, send us a message and let us know to make sure we will be.
The Flat Earth
Podcast.
All right, back with us here on the Flat Earth Podcast. Dave, who we got on the line?
So we have a friend of mine, Kevin, who is a school teacher. And Kevin has been awake for years to many of the other conspiracies that we've all looked into, but has recently been talking with me a lot for the last year or so, I think. Is that right, Kevin? About the nature of our world, the flat world.
The flat Earth, yep.
So, Kevin, what woke you up to the flat Earth, and how did that go? Tell us.
All right. Well, I am by nature, I guess, what people refer to as a conspiracy theorist, and I'm constantly on YouTube looking at different things, and you know how they have videos related to other things.
You mean a truth seeker?
Yes. That's a better phrase, but we all know what the common term is. But anyway, in about the spring of 2015. I came across a video on YouTube called the Nazis of NASA and the Infinite Plane. I think that was the name of the video. And it was getting into how, we've been lied to, that the Earth is really flat and all this other stuff. And of course, I'm being honest, the first time I saw it, saw anything relating to a flat Earth, I thought, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. There are actually people who think in this day and age that the Earth is flat. That's insane. Then I watched the video, and I just was blown away by it, because no matter how much I tried to debunk some of the things that they were saying, I couldn't. And then, of course, what happens is you look at that video, then you look at a related video, and you look at this one, and you just keep going on and on and on. And I've always had this expression that if something doesn't make sense, why do you believe it? And as I was looking at all this stuff about, a ball Earth, the ball Earth then suddenly didn't make sense. So why would I believe that? And the flat Earth is just so much more simpler. The principle of Occam's razor, that the simplest explanation is usually the best. And it's just simpler, little things like, there are literally thousands and thousands of airplanes in the air at any time, right? So how could they all be taking off and landing successfully on a spinning, orbiting ball, spinning at over 1,000 miles an hour, orbiting the sun at 66,600 miles per hour, and none of them are having any problems landing? But on a flat Earth, it makes perfect sense. Of course they can land and take off and land safely because it's flat and it's motionless. That's the key. It's motionless, not moving anywhere. So of course it has no problem. Just something simple like that.
Airplanes are one of my favorite arguments. That by itself, in my mind, easily proves the flat Earth if you really think about it. An airplane that's sitting on the runway on the equator versus one that's sitting on the runway in northern Alaska are going vastly different speeds. The one on the equator is going 1,000 miles per hour, and the one in Alaska is going maybe 400 miles per hour. As far as a point in space, zero, as a point on the Earth. So if they took off and flew to the opposite airports, how do they land? It makes absolutely no sense if you think about it.
Absolutely. And the thing that got me, one of the points that they brought up was, let's say you have a plane flying from New York to Los Angeles and Los Angeles to New York. And the flight would take roughly 5.5 hours or so in both directions. How is that possible if the Earth is rotating from west to east? It's not possible. If the Earth is rotating 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, so let's say whatever, it might be 600 miles an hour in the United States, let's say. Okay, well, if the plane is flying at 600 miles an hour and the Earth rotating underneath it is rotating at 600 miles an hour, if it's flying from LA to New York, it's never going to get to its destination because they're both going at the same speed. And contrary to that, if you're flying from New York to LA, you'd get there in maybe, 2 hours or something.
Yeah,
because,
a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like...
So the ball argument to that, which is, you're already going that speed, so it's all relative to the Earth. But my point I made at the beginning of this discussion is, if you take off from different latitudes, that relative speed, how do you make it up? If you're going 400 miles an hour in Alaska and you fly to the equator, you have to speed up a 600 miles per hour just to stay where you are. And nobody feels that. On a plane, if the pilot in the middle of a flight noses down the tiniest bit, or turns the tiniest bit, you notice it.
Yeah, and one thing that I've been thinking recently, like as far as the plane stuff goes, I was listening to, I think it was Vsauce who was saying that no, the atmosphere is stuck to the Earth, and the atmosphere is spinning with the Earth. So when you're flying back and forth, you're flying relative to everything. But if that's the case, then it's kind of like when you walk on one of those moving flat escalators at the airport. Mm-hmm. If we're all just riding along with that, right? And you try to walk the direction that the escalator is moving, it's very easy to go fast, correct?
Right.
But what about when you turn around and try to walk the opposite direction? It's a lot tougher.
Absolutely.
No.
So
wait a minute. I think you're saying that backwards, Jay. If you try to walk in the direction that it's going, you feel that it's harder. It's like being on a train and trying to run towards the front of the train. You can do it, but it's a little bit of drag on you. Try running towards the back of the train and watch out. You're going to accelerate and slam into the back of that door.
Well, okay. So think about it like this: if you're on the escalator and you're moving forward down the terminal, right? If you want to talk about like the energy it takes you to go a certain distance, well, it doesn't take me much energy if I'm riding in the direction that it's going. It doesn't take me much energy at all to go 20 feet if I'm walking with the direction of the escalator. However, if I want to go 20 feet the opposite direction that it's moving, it's a lot harder on my legs. Is that right? Are you with me?
No, that's you got it backwards. To if you're trying to travel 20 distance as opposed to something that's not on the elevator, yeah, it's going to take a lot more energy because you're going to have to run. But if you try walking in the direction that it's pushing you, it's every step relative to the moving walkway takes more energy. But if you try to run the other way, it's like running on a treadmill. It goes right out from underneath you.
Right, but you don't go anywhere.
Yeah, relative to anything else, you don't go anywhere, correct?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So if I wanted to actually say go from one end to the other, and I go backwards, it's a lot harder to get back to my starting point. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, to get to the starting
Yes,
point.
yes. Okay, but a plane, if it's going from LA to New York with the spin versus against the spin, wouldn't it take more fuel if you're going against the spin, just like it would take you more energy to go that distance?
Makes a lot of sense.
I just thought of that recently, and I haven't verbalized it out loud yet. So, Kevin, are you with me on that?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And you could, if you want to stick with the plane stuff, I was giving an example to a friend of mine the other day. I said, what if you were flying from New York to Chile? Like the southern tip of South America, right?
Right.
All right. So now, obviously, New York is in the northern hemisphere. And as you're going around the curve, now you're going past the equator. Now you're heading down to the southern hemisphere, if you can picture it in your mind's eye. Okay, now that plane is basically flying upside down, is it not? If it's a ball Earth.
Oh, yeah.
On a flat Earth, it's easy, of course. But on a ball Earth, the nose of the plane always has to be pointing down. If the plane is flying parallel to the Earth's surface, then the nose always has to be pointing in a downward motion to, make up for the so-called curvature of the Earth. And now once it passed the equator, the plane's upside down. How is that possible? It's insane.
Well, the ball answer is gravity.
Gravity, dude. Gravity.
I love how gravity is like the all-purpose answer to everything. Gravity, it's gravity. So then... And I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine last night. I said, think of how ridiculous gravity is. And of course, we all believed it, when we're growing up. But then when you think about, okay, if gravity is the reason that curved water, meaning the ocean, sticks to a spinning ball, then wow, gravity must be one powerful force. It must be just incredible to push trillions of gallons of water and make it stick to a spinning ball. But yet, a butterfly has no problem whatsoever flying through this incredible force. Or a helium balloon, you go to a birthday party and the balloon says happy birthday, and you let go of the balloon, what happens? It goes up to the ceiling. Well, where's your gravity there? It's so powerful it can push trillions of gallons, but it can't push a butterfly, it can't push a helium balloon. It's ridiculous. It's it's all about density. It's that simple. It's density. You drop a bowling ball, the bowling ball has more density than the air. That's why it hits the ground. Has nothing to do with gravity, and when it hits the ground, it stops at the ground. Why? Because the ground has more density than the bowling ball. That's it. If you drop the bowling ball through tissue paper, it goes through the tissue paper because the bowling ball has more density than the tissue paper. Very simple. This is really simple stuff.
I agree. I got a question. So you're a school teacher, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so do you...
What grade do you
High school.
teach?
9 through 12.
High school.
High school.
All right. So do you dare approach students with this?
That's the great question. It's really tough because I'm in a bad spot, because if I'd probably, even though I'm tenured, I'd probably still get in a lot of trouble. But about a few months ago, I shared the flat earth stuff with one of my coworkers, teacher. Well, he went and told one of my students, who then approached me a few days later in the hallway and said, so-and-so teacher told me that you think that the earth is flat. I said, yes, I do. And he said, come on, what are you, crazy? And then I proceeded to go through. I said, all right, you got a few minutes? And then I proceeded to go through a bunch of reasons why. And then he looked at me and he said, you're freaking me out. You're blowing my mind. And I really had him thinking, because we've all been brainwashed. Oh yeah, the earth's this ball, but I really got him thinking. So on occasion I'll slip it in, but I don't get out there and profess it. But once in a while, if I, because a lot of the students are open-minded to, they talk about, the Illuminati and stuff like that. And, Jay-Z's an Illuminati or Rihanna or something like that. So in some cases, the students know more about truth-seeking / conspiracies than the adults do, than the teachers do. You can actually have a fairly reasonable discussion with a student about 9/11, But if you bring it up to another teacher, oh no, it was the evil Muslims with the box cutters,
Right.
But the students are more open-minded to it than the adults are. So I just wish that in our education system, we were allowed to and able to present both sides of a particular issue, whatever it might be, and we don't.
No.
There's no way we do. I mean, I remember when I had to proctor the history regents exam, and I was looking at a history textbook that happened to be in the classroom. And it was, I was just reading the stuff about 9/11. And it's in the history books about how, 19 Arabs, members of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, all this nonsense, complete garbage. And I'm like, this is what's being taught to the kids. Not even, well, there's two sides. There's other people who think that that's not what happened. And let's look at both sides.
Wait, hold on a second. There's people that think and there's people that don't think. The people that don't think believe the official story. The people that think the tiniest little bit know that 9/11 was nonsense.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying, but the problem is that's not what they're being taught. So whether, you know what I'm saying? Whether
indoctrinated.
They're being indoctrinated. Yeah, it's really awful.
So
right.
I just wanted to check because I've always been under the impression, like with the way the education system works, that the school teachers are pretty much handcuffed as far as what they can and cannot teach. Just your opinion here: if a science teacher caught wind of this flat Earth stuff at your school and actually got into it and realized, well, this is a great way to get kids to learn about the way the world works. Let's have a debate, flat versus globe, so that they learn. Do you think they'd be allowed to do it?
I actually had 2 years ago, I had a conversation with a science teacher. And of course, he thought I was out of my mind. And he was trying to, debunk the things I was saying. I said, if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles, if I jumped up in the air and then I landed, I couldn't possibly land in the same spot if the Earth is doing what they're saying it's doing, And he said, well, it's like if you were in a subway, on the subway and you jumped up in the air and you landed. I'm like, yeah, you'd land in a different spot, like you'd land in because the subway car is moving at whatever, 50 miles an hour, whatever it might be. If you are and I love when they use the analogy, say like, well, it's like when you're in an airplane, the airplane's flying at 500 miles an hour, but you don't feel like it. Well, yeah, that's because you're in the airplane.
It's sealed in.
If you're on the wing, you'd notice it.
Yeah, it's sealed in. I always say the same thing because I heard Vsauce or one of those guys saying, take a piece of paper, roll it up in the back seat of a car, and you throw it to the front of the train or the front of the subway, and it goes the same speed as if you threw it back and forth. And I'm like, okay, so roll the windows down. I dare you to roll the windows down. You will definitely feel the effect on the throwing the piece of paper.
And I don't even know if that's the truth, because when you walk forward on a train and you walk backwards on a train, it takes completely different amounts of energy.
Yeah, you feel it.
And so,
right.
Yeah, you feel it. I once ran towards the back of the train and I almost couldn't slow down because I started accelerating. It was amazing.
So, yeah, so like, let's say that science teacher you were talking to, Kevin, let's say he or she caught on and agreed with what you were saying. Like, oh, let's say they got it. They woke up. Do you think they would be allowed to present that to the kids?
No, honestly, I don't think so. I think even if it was presented in a way that it's like, hey, let's look at, instead of saying, this is what I believe or this is what I think, there are people who believe that the Earth is flat. Let's take a look at why they think this, and let's look at both sides of this issue. I think the teacher would get in a whole... They'd be called in probably for a disciplinary conference. Like, what on earth are you doing? What on flat Earth are you doing?
So do you think if you were to bring this up with your students, you think you would get a visit from the principal?
I just think that, I try to keep things low key. And what I do a lot of times is I will not discuss things with students until they graduate. Like if there's students that, maybe... I had a rapport with or whatever. When they graduate, I'll get their email addresses. And I have students that, I've still kept in touch with over the years. And, I'll share stuff with them about, 9/11 or other various things. And, but it's after they're no longer, because once they're no longer a student, they're just a citizen like anybody else,
That's
so
right.
it's not a problem. But yeah, it's a tough thing to do in school.
I've always wanted to approach a high school, maybe like a debate team or something, and come in and have them debate me and offer, say, hey, why don't we debate whether the Earth is flat or round, and they can pick round. And then it's anyone that really starts trying to prove the ball Earth becomes a flat earther, because once you start looking at the nonsense, there's no way back. So help me get set up in your school. Invite me in to debate, a science class or something.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it, and I'd be in the back of the auditorium cheering you on.
All right, hey, find the science teacher that you had that brief conversation with a while back, and ask him to come on the Flat Earth podcast and talk to us.
And straighten us out.
I have his email address, so I'll see what I can
that would
do.
be incredible. That would be incredible. If anybody's listening out there who knows a science teacher who thinks this is total garbage and wants to set us straight, please put them in touch with us, because we'd love to have them on the show.
Send them to theflatearthpodcast.com, and they can leave us a voicemail right there. We have a little app there. Just click it and leave a question, or tell us, who you think should be on the show or who wants to be on, and we'd be glad to talk to almost anybody.
Yeah, I can assure you, if you say that you've got a science teacher ready to come on the show, we'll get back in touch with you pretty quickly, right, Dave?
Absolutely.
It'd be like the fastest return call ever.
So, Kevin, have you talked to any other students about the flat Earth? Have you hinted at it? When
I did hint at it. There was one day that I kind of threw it out there, and they started arguing with me, and I just kept saying things like, yeah, because we know that water curves, right? Like when you fill your sink or your bathtub with water, even when I present things that are really not debatable, they still argue, no. Of course it's a globe. Of course, yeah, but how? But they never, and that's the thing, they never explain how. Oh, this was the worst. This actually happened. So there's a guy I'm friends with who's a social studies teacher. We were discussing stuff during lunch, and I had said to him, that the Earth was flat. And he started laughing, and he goes, wait a minute, you think that the Earth is flat? I go, no, I don't think that the Earth is flat. I know that the Earth is flat. And he started laughing. And then he went to one of his colleagues who he carpools with, this woman who teaches at the same school, and she presented arguments, of course, So he said, well, you know what? You both, because I went through all my stuff, and he said, you both have good points. I want to put the two of you together, and, and I want to be there. I want to see you guys have a debate. I said, okay, anytime. Name the time, name the place. So we finally set it up. And the first thing that she did was she went on the attack. Instead of saying, okay, tell me why you think that the Earth is flat, let's go through it. She started with, are you a scientist? Are you a scientist? Have you studied science? I'm like, no, I'm not a scientist. No, I'm just a person who has a brain myself, think for myself, And so basically then, so then, 99% of the people then would have no right to have an opinion because you're not a scientist. It was so stupid. And then she was taking out photographs. So she went on vacation on a mountain, and she was showing me that. She goes, see, look, there's the curvature. And I'm like, where? She was showing me from mountaintops, the view from the mountain that she saw curvature. I'm like, there's no curvature. Where do you see curvature? There is none. It was unbelievable. So, and of course, when I mentioned to the fact, I said, okay, so then explain to me how the people, I said, if you're right about that the Earth is a ball, then people in Australia would have to be, they're walking around upside down, right? And she got angry as all hell and said, they're not walking around upside down. And I said, I know they're not, because the Earth is flat. I said, if it have to be walking around upside down, walking into buildings that are upside down. And I got her to admit that, well, yes, from our perspective, that's the other argument. When you present things like, I said, then penguins in Antarctica would be walking around upside down. And she goes, well, it's all a matter of perspective.
Well, yeah, it is, actually.
That's the argument.
Well, but what does that mean? You'd still... Yeah, you still have to be. Somebody's got to be walking around upside down on a ball Earth.
So gravity is curved. So that's why when airplanes are flying, you're flying on that curved gravity highway and you don't feel the curve because your senses are always level, even though you're nosing down. I mean, this is the stuff they believe. Yeah.
Like, even if, because I even say, like, even if gravity were real, okay, even if it was, it's not, but let's just say it was. You'd still be upside down. If you're an RC, you'd be upside down. The blood would be rushing to your head. You can't have everybody on the planet of a ball Earth right side up. It's not possible.
I'll be the baller. If you don't believe in gravity, go to a second story window and step out.
And the density of my body would make me fall down because it's greater than that of the air.
Right.
That's the real reason. It has nothing to do with gravity.
So you were talking about the curvature, the missing curvature, not being able to see it, not being able to see it. I always like to throw a little some observations that people can look into. There's a lake in Alaska that's like 300 miles and it freezes over every year. It would have how many miles? Like 10 miles of curvature, but it's flat. There's no curvature.
And it's so flat that they probably play ice hockey on it, right?
They do.
I'm sure they do.
And there's no curvature there. And, there's places like the salt flats that are admittedly by scientists geometrically flat.
Yep. That's why they're called salt flats.
And then when there's water on them, the water is, just a 3-4 inches, whatever it is, all the way across. And, if the world was a sphere with spherical gravity, the ends of those, the deepest would be in the middle and the ends would have to stick out. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
None.
On a ball Earth. It's just nonsense.
No, whenever I first started looking into this, just like Kevin said earlier, it didn't take long before you go, wait a second. It's the common belief. It's the globe. It's the spinning ball that really makes no sense. It's more ludicrous than people think flat Earth is.
It's insane because the thing that people are not just realizing about the spin. But let's remember, we are told, at least according to the official story, that the Earth is 93 million miles away from the sun, yet we can see it every day, no problem. And it is orbiting around the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. Of course, they have to throw in the 666 there. But think about that a second. Okay, so if that's true, then if planes are flying, don't the planes have to fly at 66,000 miles an hour to keep up with the Earth? How is it that, but is there some magnetic force that's keeping them attached within, say, 30,000 feet of the moving, orbiting ball Earth? And if you were behind the Earth, you'd have to fly at 66,000 miles an hour to keep up with it. And if you're, let's say, in front of the Earth as it's orbiting, well, wouldn't this Earth traveling at 66,000 miles be crashing into all these planes that are in the air? Just
Wait, think about the poor moon. The moon, it goes from full, from a half moon on one side to a half moon on the other side, in 2 weeks. Its cycle is 2 weeks and 2 weeks, 4 weeks between the full moons. So it's going around the Earth that's flying through space. So it has to speed up, and then when it comes around the front of the Earth, it has to slow down. Yeah. Again, to otherwise the phases would all be off. So it's speeding up and slowing down, which it's just utter nonsense.
Yeah, and then when you throw in the fact that it's rotating at this speed, it's orbiting at this speed, and if you ever in a place like Vermont or someplace where the air is really clean, you look up at night and there's thousands or millions of stars, right? But they're always in the North Star is always in the same spot. There's the North Star. Tonight, tomorrow night, the next night. But wait, aren't we doing all this traveling with the spinning and the orbiting? How could it be in the same spot? And all the constellations, the Big Dipper and
every year on the same day the following year, it's right back in the exact same spot it was the year before.
It's crazy.
And the baller argument is it's changing. In 45,000 years, we're going to have a new North Star. Well, guess what? I'm not going to live that lie and wait 45,000 years to prove to you that no, the North Star doesn't move.
Yeah, it's like, the stars are still there every night in basically the same spot, but we're doing all this traveling. So how could they be in the same spot?
Let me just throw a thing out there, that I've talked about before, but again, we're going to repeat some things on this podcast because there's a lot of new people to flat Earth. Think about this. We're told that there's stars that are just like our sun that are all across our galaxy. Everybody agree? Ballers and flat earthers alike?
That's what we're told.
That's what we're told. And our sun, if our sun was right on top of the Earth, it was a mile above our head, and we were looking up, it would just be all we can see. It would be many, many, many thousands of times wider than the Earth. It would just be everything. Everybody agrees with that.
If it was a mile above the Earth, it'd be gigantic.
Yeah, it'd be one of those giant gym balls, and we would be a pebble next to it.
And we'd get the worst sunburn.
I was trying to avoid the sunburn jokes. So now we move it 93 million miles away, which according to science is about 8 light minutes. The distance light travels in 8 minutes. It takes 8 minutes, they say, for the sunlight to get to us. So now it's gone from this gigantic everything above us to the size of a dime held at arm's length. Everybody agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. Depending on how long your arm is, maybe it's a nickel. Whatever. So in 8 light minutes, it's gotten that small. Kevin, if I doubled that distance, how much smaller would it get? Would you be able to see it?
If you doubled the distance.
If I doubled the distance from 8 light minutes to 16 light minutes. So,
oh God, no, because now it's not 93 million miles. Now it's 186 million miles.
Right. So what if I 8 times the distance? Do you think you'd be able to see it? And everybody agrees, no, you wouldn't be able to see it. Well, guess what? That's 1 light hour, okay? They're not talking light hours. They're talking light years, okay? Those are impossible things that don't exist. They're made-up numbers, and it's complete and utter nonsense. A light hour is ridiculous, okay? And they're talking tens and hundreds of light years. Nonsense.
And so here's another thing I would like to ask Ball Earthers. Okay, so I think you might remember, I don't know, a few months ago, there was an interview between Jeranism and Zachary K. Hubbard. You familiar with it?
Yes.
Okay. So the one thing I wanted Jeranism to ask Zach, because I actually do like Zachary Hubbard, but I think, so on like 5% of the things, but on this one, he's so far off, it's a joke. The one thing I wanted Jeranism to hit and say, all right, Zach, you seem to accept the fact that the Earth is orbiting around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, okay? Which is, I don't know how many times the speed of sound. It's like 87 times the speed of sound. So tell me, Zach, at what point, how many miles per hour would you not accept this? How many miles an hour does the Earth have to be orbiting around the sun where you say, oh, that's ridiculous? Like if we said, Zach, the Earth is orbiting around the sun at the speed of light. Zach would probably say, oh, that's ridiculous. Of course it's not. All right, so how come you're able to accept that it's orbiting around the sun at like 87 times the speed of sound? So that's easy for you to accept? Like, give me, what's the breaking point? What's the limit to where you say, no, that's ridiculous?
Right.
I'd always like ballers.
Well, my biggest hang up or frustration, I guess I should say, is that the people who argue against the flat earth, they don't know these things until you look into it. And it's one of the reasons when someone has found out in the past that I was into flat earth and they asked me and they said, oh, come on, flat earth. And they hit me with that negative attitude right away. I just say, you know what? I'm not even going to have this conversation with you because I don't think you're ready for it. What do you mean I'm not ready for it? Well, no, I just don't think you're prepared as far as the facts go. Oh, really? What don't I know about the flat earth? And I say, no, I don't think you're prepared with the facts for your own side of the argument. What do you mean? Well, how far is the moon? How far is the sun? How fast are we moving? How fast are we spinning?
Yeah, what's the circumference of the Earth? What's the radius of the Earth? What's the mathematical formula for curvature? Did you know that it's 8 inches per mile squared? They have no idea. They're idiots. No clue.
And we've all seen it, like with certain people in the flat Earth video movement debating others. We know when we recognize right away when someone comes to the table and they're not armed with the facts of their own model.
You know, when I set to debate somebody, you know, a ball earther, a couple things happen. One is they show up completely unprepared because they're debating a flat earther. They don't even need to prepare and they get destroyed. Or two, they actually prepare and then they cancel because they realize they're going to lose.
Well, that's why we had the discussion. I had the discussion with you, David, a few weeks ago. You know, there's the Flat Earth conferences coming up in November.
Are you going?
And I can't get down from where I live. But, you know, but the thing that I said is like, it's kind of like, all right, like I'm, you know, very much part of the 9/11 Truth Movement, right? And a lot of times the 9/11 Truth Movement will have these events in New York City on the anniversary. And really, to be honest, it's kind of a waste of time because you have whatever, 500, 600, 1,000 people and they talk about, oh, the buildings were demolished, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know this already. And all it is just a bunch of people. You're preaching to the close this stuff. What we really need to do is educate those that don't know. That's why I prefer getting out on the street and doing street actions. And as far as the Flat Earth comments, I would love to have Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Joe Rogan, any of those people. Let's have them there. And they will get destroyed. Now, of course, they won't accept an invitation.
Yeah, it'll never happen, but it would be awesome.
If you're right, then you have nothing to be afraid of. If the Earth is a ball and you know it and you're a scientist, you're an astrophysicist, then you should have nothing to be afraid of. Nothing at all.
We have an open invitation on the Flat Earth podcast for all of those guys, Neil, Joe, and Bill, to come on and show us how we're wrong so we can shut this podcast down and stop making fools of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, correction from what I said earlier. The person who actually leaves us a voicemail and says that they can get Neil deGrasse Tyson on, that'll be the fastest callback ever.
You know, I mean, just the question I would always love to ask of him if I ever had an opportunity. All right, so you've all seen the video where he talks about when you spin the pizza dough and it flattens out, and he says, so the Earth has been doing this since it's born. So he goes, it really, is kind of wider at the equator. He goes, so the Earth is not actually a sphere. It's really an oblate spheroid. And then he goes on to make the matters worse and say, and it's a little chubbier below the equator, so it's actually pear-shaped. And I'm like, oh, I would so love to ask him this question. Okay, the Earth is not a sphere. So then please tell me, Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, every photo that NASA has showed us of the Earth, it is a perfect sphere. No, we can't debate that. So who's lying? Is NASA lying or are you lying?
Because both can't be true.
Those photos are not oblate spheroids, not at all.
Right. It's classic case of both can't be true.
Are you a scientist?
Yeah. Are you a scientist?
Are you a scientist? Did you measure them?
I'm definitely not.
When talking to ball earthers that don't prepare for the debate, they have no idea what they're defending, and I always point them to my favorite video of my own. Of course, the Earth does not spin. And the title is you can look it up on the DITRH channel. Not spinning, not orbiting, not moving.
I just FYI, I send that out to people all the time. It's a great 5-minute video that it says if you believe that the Earth is a spinning ball, then you believe this.
This is what I say. This is what you believe. Just watch it before we have our conversation. And anybody that watches it, looks at it. I mean, I'm just putting forward facts, which are theories, but they're facts that are they're taught as facts.
Supposed facts.
Yeah, they're supposed facts. And you watch that, and then you really have some thinking to do.
It's a great video. It's like it really is that. Usually I say, give me 10 minutes, and I send your 5-minute video. And then the other one, like Flat Earth in 5 minutes. Because
by ODD.
Yeah. Because people don't want to look at because obviously you could discuss this for like 9 hours if you want. And people don't want to look at a video that's 2.5 hours. They don't want to. You know,
I do.
Not at first. I do now, but not at first, right?
yeah,
Well,
but most people. Let's remember who we're dealing with. You know,
Chris, that's my channel. I make videos that are under 5 minutes, some of them under 2 minutes, and the purpose is to get your interest. Basically, I do teasers,
right?
Yes.
You know, just to get your interest, and then you're like, wow, I want to know more. Oh, I'll watch this 45-minute video by ODD, 21 questions. You know, then you watch that, and it's like, you know, give me a 2-hour video. Oh, look. IPS is on. He's doing an 8-hour hangout. Awesome.
Yep. Yeah. That's how I started too, Dave. It's like same way, you know. And one of the only videos that I've actually produced and put out there was exactly that. The Right Now video. Have you? You need to check that out, Kevin.
All right.
Because it's 4 or 5 minutes, and it's just a teaser to get you thinking. You know what I mean?
Okay. I'll have
You can find it. You can find it on the bottom of our Facebook page. I have my video and his video posted, and the Facebook page is called. You want to guess?
Go ahead.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
Okay.
You know what? Kevin, are you allowed? What's your dress code as a teacher? Do you guys have rules as far as what you can wear?
I can tell you that I'm a phys ed teacher, so it's sneakers and sweatpants and a t-shirt.
So Dave, we need to get him a Flat Earth Podcast t-shirt ASAP.
Absolutely.
Oh God.
So you can pick and choose when you can wear that thing and you know, break some ice.
Oh, that would be
They're
great.
great looking T-shirts. They're amazing.
Mr. Kevin, you're a flat earther?
And what you could say is it's just a T-shirt.
Yeah, somebody gave me this t-shirt.
Yeah, it's just a T-shirt. It's very comfortable.
Yeah, a friend of mine has a podcast, so what?
Available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and every other favorite podcast app that you have out there.
Following announcement has been paid for by
The Flat Earth
Podcast.
The Flat Earth Conference 2017 takes place this November from Raleigh, North Carolina. Tickets are sold out right now, but visit their website and get on the waiting list.
Or just head down. There's lots of people heading down to an adjacent hotel where they'll be live streaming in an auditorium and lots of outside stuff happening. A big Flat Earth hangout.
And if you want to contribute to the massive Flat Earth billboard that's going up down in Raleigh, North Carolina, head over to the website, flatearthpodcast.com, click on the link that sends you over to the billboard campaign.
The billboard is 14 feet tall by 48 feet wide. It'll be the biggest Flat Earth billboard to date. It'll be running for a month up before the conference and ending the Sunday after the conference.
Head over to fe2017.com now.
The Flat Earth
Podcast.
And if you are coming down to the Flat Earth Conference in November, on Wednesday, the day before, we're going to be kicking off the conference with a gathering at the Flat Earth Billboard, which is just 2.5 miles from the conference center. We're going to have hundreds of people there. We're going to have a drone up filming us. We're going to be live streaming it to all of the different media across the plane, and we'll be interviewing people during it that'll be going out over the live stream. Be part of that. You don't even have to have a ticket to the show. Just join us and listen for more information here on the Flat Earth Podcast.
The Flat Earth
Podcast.
Hey, we going to discuss NASA at all or what?
Yeah. Let's get into that in 1 second. Any students, young kids that are interested in talking to us, we'll take you all. I would like some high school kids to come and show us why the Earth is a ball.
Well, I can't do that for you, but I might be able to get you some of my former students who've graduated in the last couple of years. I might be able to get you that.
I'm just talking to anybody that's listening to the show. Go to our website, leave us a voicemail. We have voicemail right on our website. Click the button, leave us a message, tell us anything you want, tell us why it's a ball, tell us why it's flat. We're listening. All right, NASA. When did you know that NASA was a joke? But go ahead.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I got a segue to get us to NASA because I've been wanting to ask you guys this. Both of you are already convinced, as am I, on the non-rotundity of the Earth. What would it take you guys to be brought back to the globe side? Is there anything out there that could prove it?
No. No. It's like once for me, I'm speaking for myself only. Once you get to the point where I'm at, I can't go back. It would be no different than someone trying to convince me that 9/11 was done by Osama bin Laden. There's not a chance in the world you could.
You know,
convince me
you're
that.
right.
You can't go back.
I'm going to preface this by saying we are open to new information.
Yes.
But there's no chance that anybody can show us something. You know, here's a global argument. Well, what if I sent you up in a spaceship to the space station and you could see the Earth? Would that prove it? And the answer is just a straw man argument. It's never going to happen, you know.
Yep. Well, let me. Here's the reason I can seg this into NASA, because for me personally, I'm like you guys. There's not much that can convince me at this point. Like, I'm open-minded to it. You know, it's not a belief that's holding me back. I'm open-minded to it, but the information that it would take to convince me is not there. I've looked, I've tried to find it. But one of the things I've thought recently, like, that would go a long way in helping me would be if NASA were to have supplied the telemetry data for the moon missions. And for those of you who don't know about what telemetry data is, it's basically the data that tracks where you're at in space from your original starting point. And, you know, out of NASA's own mouth, they lost the telemetry data.
Sorry, couldn't help it.
No, but, you know, it's like...
That's comical.
It is. And it's like, wait, we went to the moon six times.
Times in 3
and you guys,
years.
six times, and you guys can't produce the data how far...
The problem is, even if they could find it, they don't have the machines that can replay it.
Well, screw that. I'll take a piece of paper. I'll pay for them to FedEx the paper to me.
With a supercomputer, they can fake the telemetry data one day. Don't you think they can just fake it?
Yes, they probably could nowadays, which is why I said I chose my words carefully. I said, had they supplied us with, because at some point, they probably will supply us with some fake telemetry data. But the fact is the moon missions were 50 years ago, and we don't have telemetry data on any of them.
Let's quickly all hit our favorite moon fakeage proof, and I'll start.
All right, go for it.
Is all of the dust on the moon and the lander? There's no blast mark, you know, of it landing or taking off. And where did all the dust come from on the moon anyway? Don't you need running water for dust?
Right.
You know, to break everything down.
Yeah, you need moisture.
It makes no sense.
Kevin, what's yours?
You don't even have to go to any conspiracy stuff. Just go on nasa.gov. Go on their website, okay? And look at their photos of moon landings. And where are the stars? How come the sky is pitch black? How is it possible there's not a single star in the sky? To me, that's a big one.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Like, what explanation can there be? Like, because you can't say, well, you know, on Earth, sometimes I look in the sky and, you know, you don't really see that many stars. Say, well, there's pollution, there's clouds. Okay, well, there's no pollution, there's no clouds on the moon. So how can there not be any stars in the sky?
Yeah, mine is, my number one is, it's hard to express on an audio podcast. I simply say, Google image search a picture of the lunar module.
It's a tin can with Scotch tape on it.
It's a freaking, curtain rods and duct tape and foil.
I can tell you that
the Little Rascals built it.
Yeah.
I'm not just trying to be funny. I'm dead serious. Anyone can look at that thing and say, if you look at it objectively and say, did they actually eject this thing from a spaceship with men inside it down to the surface of the moon and then shoot it back up and merge with the ship? Come on, are you serious?
It's ridiculous.
There's no way.
6 times.
Yeah, right.
And by the way, they never tested those engines that on Earth. They admitted they never tested them.
Oh, and
no. Actually, they had tests for the lunar module, but they all failed. They never had a successful test ever.
Did you see and you can look it up. A year before, so in 1968, Neil Armstrong almost got killed. They were testing the lunar module, and it's spinning out of control. He had to eject himself, and land. Couldn't land this thing safely on Earth. How the hell were they going to land it safely on 238,000 miles away? It's crazy.
It's 6 times easier on the moon because it's only 1/6 gravity. So maybe that's the answer.
Of course. Gravity plays into the answer of everything, obviously. No. It's absolutely ridiculous. The fact that like when you stop and think about any type of transportation technology. Go back and look at the Wright brothers when they flew. The first car, the first car didn't run. The first plane didn't fly. Except the hardest one of all, the moon missions, they got it right on the first try.
First try. Yeah. I sent out an email with a video. It's like an 18-minute video of NASA rocket failures, like prior to 1969. And it's just like 18 minutes of just one rocket after another just blowing up, like, like, and it's like, okay, so how did this one work? So we had one failure after another, but then on that day, in July of 69, okay, no problem. Everything was just Jim Dandy,
Amazing.
Oh, so frustrating.
It's absolutely amazing. We have in August, we have a lunar eclipse coming up, and a big solar eclipse. What I want to see is a camera on the moon. I think JAXA or one of the isn't there a rover on the moon right now by China?
Oh
or
yeah,
Japan?
it's like Robot City up there.
So during the solar eclipse, they should show us the Earth rising up and blocking out the sun, right? Is that would be
Say that again.
If you're on the moon, hold on. If it's a solar, now I'm getting myself all spun around backwards. On the lunar eclipse, the Earth is rising up, blocking the sunlight onto the moon, right? That's a lunar eclipse. So, right, I got that right.
Yes, you got that right.
It spins me around. I'm so dyslexic, it's bad.
I've gone cross-eyed.
I've got dysdexia. They should show us the Earth rising up and blocking out the sun, but they can never do that because you can't fake it. They'll never show it. It would be the most amazing video ever, sponsored by whoever would pay for the whole thing, but it's never going to happen because.
Well, the same thing goes for the other way around, Dave. For this big solar eclipse that's coming up on in August 21st, I believe it is.
Correct.
They could easily take one of those robot camera rover things on the moon, right? Turn it around and show us the Earth with the big shadow going across it.
Right.
Because the solar eclipse is where the moon causes that shadow. Well, it should be no problem for them to take a look from the moon at the Earth with the big shadow.
Yeah, but how, and by the way, the shadow doesn't get smaller over distance.
Oh,
it should grow.
Yeah.
It's like, they don't even
That's a big one.
Yeah, they don't even have it. They don't even have it right, and that's
no. It's a 2,000 mile wide moon that causes a 100 mile wide shadow.
How does that happen?
It is absolutely impossible, except in our heliocentric model. That is the only time you will ever see a shadow get smaller than the object. That's a big one for me. That was a big proof for me.
The other thing is with the, Bill Nye is always saying, we know the Earth is a ball because of the round shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse. And, as many all flat earthers know, there's been many eclipses where the sun and the moon are above the horizon during the eclipse. And when the shadow, if that's what it is, comes in, it doesn't come in from the bottom. It comes in from the top left, right? Which makes again zero sense.
Yeah,
I'm going to say that a lot on the show. Nonsense.
Yeah, for those of you,
because it is nonsense.
For those of you who are just checking out the flat Earth or just getting into it or whatever, go on YouTube and search for what is it? Lunar Eclipse 2011, December 2011, and you'll see footage that was shot by different people, different parts of the country that were filming the lunar eclipse. And like Dave said, both the sun and the moon are above the horizon, and the shadow comes from the wrong direction. And that right there just blows a hole in the entire model that we've been taught since children. And science has no explanation for that other than like a magic word like refraction, gravity, refraction, atmosphere, whatever.
Or they just ignore it and refuse to address it.
Kevin, you still there?
Yeah, I wanted to get your take on one of the other things relating to the moon missions that always comes up, and get your opinion on, because I have two viewpoints on it. The Van Allen radiation belts. Okay, so we're told that the Van Allen radiation belts go from about 1,000 miles above the Earth's surface to like 25,000 miles above the Earth's surface. And that's one of the arguments made against why we never went to the moon, because, our astronauts would have been fried trying to go through there and back and all that kind of stuff. Do you think the Van Allen belts are real, or is that just another hoax perpetrated by the powers that shouldn't be?
So who told us about the Van Allen radiation belts? NASA?
So, the guy that was some guy named
James Van Allen
that they were named after.
He was a scientist, and when you say it takes away from the firmament, what do you mean it takes away? Like,
flat earthers primarily believe that there's a dome, a firmament that
not all of them.
Not all of them.
Just to be clear,
couldn't the Van Allen belts themselves be the firmament?
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I'm saying that's what I'm trying to find out, because if you saw the video that NASA put out about the spaceship called Orion, and they've got the guy, the engineer, I think, oh, we have to go through the dangerous Van Allen belts. We have to go up and back and blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, well, are the Van Allen belts even real? And when they interviewed the astronaut Alan Bean, and he was just like beyond clueless when he was, that's hysterical when he said, he goes, I don't know if we went high enough up. Well, the moon is supposed to be 238,000 miles away, and the Van Allen belt's like 1,000 miles away. So he goes, well, then we went right through them. And then he said something like, well, I don't think they had been discovered yet. That's classic,
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. That's terrible.
So I'm just wondering if they're even real or,
Well, my take is it's one of two things. It's either they're not real, but they were trying to provide some sort of reason as to why we couldn't go up high, prior to the NASA moon landing stuff. Like, they made it up as far as like, yeah, there's a roof. We can't tell everyone there's a roof, but let's tell them there's this belt of radiation. Or B, it is true. He found the belt of radiation, and that is in fact what some call a dome, or that is the roof. That's as high as we can go. I don't know which one it is. But
So would the Van Allen belts be inside the dome or outside the dome? Probably inside then, right?
So I just want to jump in here. There's lots of controversy and arguments: dome, no dome, infinite plane, not infinite plane. Nobody knows. I think all of us here are leaning towards a dome from all the evidence that we see. But we are open to any other information out there. I think that our dome, whatever it may be, I think there's more land past Antarctica. I've said this on a previous episode, I believe. But don't anybody take offense? Like, these guys are domers.
No.
I call it the infinite plane dome.
No, when I say dome, I mean it's a limit. It's a roof. It's a ceiling. It's whatever word you want to call it. You can't go any higher than that. And when you ask, are the Van Allen belts inside or outside? Well, maybe that is the limit. That's the limit. I don't know. I don't want to say dome again, but
I don't know, because I always try, on the one hand, I try to use the Van Allen belt argument as proof that there's no possible way we could have gone to the moon, because you can't get through this belt of radiation. All right. And NASA even admits it today, in the present day, so there's no way we flew through it. And it's funny because I went on NASA's website. I wanted to see what was their explanation after the Orion thing, where they said, oh, we can't fly through the Van Allen belts without this protective shield. All right, well, if that's true, then how did we do it, 6 times back in the late 70s, early 70s? And their explanation, it actually said it in 3 words. They didn't linger. That's what it says on NASA's website. It says they didn't linger. Oh,
they stepped on the gas. Yeah, they went fast. Thank you.
Yeah, so they just made sure. Listen, when we hit the Van Allen belts, let's go really, really fast, and we'll be able to fly through it, no problem. But meanwhile, NASA today, in present day, saying like, oh, this is going to be a really difficult thing to do. We've got to have special shielding and all. But I'm like, well, why didn't they just use the same things they used back in 1969? What's so hard?
Yeah, I've always thought that was a lousy explanation.
Hey, Kevin, this has been amazing. We're going to need to have you back on again because there's more to talk about, but it's time to wrap up. A final thought on your part?
I just wish we could find a way to get more people to even be aware of it. Because, the flat earth movement's big amongst people like you and me and YouTubers, but the general public really doesn't even have a clue. And I was hoping that, when Kyrie Irving and Shaquille O'Neal, came out and said their things, that it would gain some momentum, but it really didn't, and like to be more of a mainstream topic. I hope that comes soon.
Well, which is why we're going to send you a Flat Earth Podcast t-shirt.
Oh, and sure, I'll wear it, and then it's just going to go boom.
It will. And then
Bam.
also, there's
one T-shirt.
I'm sure there's a way for a school teacher to lock himself inside the PA room and get on that PA and talk about Flat Earth and drive everybody to the Flat Earth Podcast, to ODD, A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth. And if you did it long enough, I'm sure it would make the news also and reach other schools.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And I'd be in the rubber room,
That's an
too.
incredible idea, actually.
It would be worth the sacrifice.
Wow.
After I retire, Dave.
All right, Kevin, thank you for coming on the Flat Earth Podcast. Find us at theflatearthpodcast.com. Leave us a message. You tweet us, Facebook us, hit the whole thing. And don't miss an episode. We got some exciting episodes coming up.
Yep, we'll see you next week.
What you're seeing here is a mirage. What you're seeing here is a mirage.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.